We're on them every single day. But have you ever really stopped to think about what goes into designing a road? It's not just about slapping down some asphalt. There's this whole hidden world of complex rules and calculations that dictate exactly how our streets are built, especially where they all come together.
Just think about your daily drive. Sometimes it's a simple four-way stop. Other times you're navigating a roundabout, or this massive swirling highway interchange that looks like a giant concrete pretzel. So what's the deal? Why isn't there just one standard way for roads to cross each other?
Well, it turns out engineers don't just wing it. They follow an incredibly detailed rulebook. Here, we're looking at the Korean Design Standards, or KDS for short, but pretty much every country has its own version of this, a massive document that lays out the precise rules for every single design choice.
Okay, so just to make sure we're all speaking the same language, the official term for any place where roads meet is an intersection. And these rulebooks split them into two main types. You've got at grade, which is just a fancy way of saying the roads cross on the same flat level. And then you have grade separated, where one road flies over or under the other.
All right, let's start with level 1, the one we all see 1,000 times a day, the at-grade crossing. This is your basic neighborhood corner, your downtown traffic light. It's the most fundamental kind of intersection there is.
And right near the top of these design manuals, you'll find what is basically the golden rule. It gets right to the heart of road design philosophy. It says that when you have to choose between moving traffic faster and keeping people safe, safety is the absolute #1 non-negotiable priority, every single time.
And this obsession with safety gets ridiculously specific. Just look at the width of a single lane. It's not a random number, it's meticulously defined. A lane on a fast, rural road has to be wider than one on a slower city street. It's all about giving drivers a little more room for error when speeds are higher.
So next time you're driving in the city on a road with a 60 km/h speed limit, chances are that lane you're in is exactly 3.0 meters wide. That's not a coincidence, it's a very specific calculation. So what does this all tell us? Well, it shows that road design is really a science of centimeters. Engineers are in this constant balancing act between keeping us safe, moving as many cars as possible, and, the actual physical space they have to work with.
But here's the thing. There's something that's even more critical than the physical width of the road, and that's what engineers call sight distance. It's a simple idea, really. How far down the road do you need to be able to see to react to something safely?
And this is where physics just takes over. Look at this. At a slow 30 kilometers an hour, you only need to see about 35 meters ahead. But if you just double that speed to 60, you need almost triple the stopping distance, a full 105 meters. This is why you will never, ever see a sharp, blind corner on a high-speed road. It's literally against the rules. Okay, so simple crossings are great, but they have their limits. What happens when the amount of traffic and the speeds just get too high for a regular intersection to handle? Well, that's when engineers have to level up. Literally. We're moving on to the interchange. The big, game-changing advantage of an interchange is that it completely eliminates what's called traffic conflict. Cars aren't cutting across each other's paths anymore, they're flowing over or under each other. This means you can maintain high speeds and handle way more cars. But as you can probably guess, the price tag goes way, way up.
Now, one of the most important parts of these interchanges is the on-ramp. You can't just come to a dead stop and then try to merge into traffic that's flying by. You need what's basically a runway to get your car up to speed. The official term is an acceleration lane.
And the length of that runway, well, it grows exponentially with speed. To get onto a 60 km/h road, you need 55 meters. Not too bad. But to safely merge onto a 120 km/h highway, you need a whopping 400 meters. To put that in perspective, that is the entire length of an Olympic running track just to get up to speed.
So the big takeaway here is really simple. Speed costs space. A lot of space. The faster we want our roads to be, the more land and the more massive the infrastructure has to be to support it all safely. Okay, now for the final boss of intersections, the most high-stakes crossing of all, where a road meets a railroad. Here, the potential for disaster is huge, so the rules are the absolute strictest. The official design manual is pretty blunt about this. It basically says, look, in a perfect world, roads and railways should never, ever cross on the same level. The preferred solution is always a bridge or an underpass, no question.
So, if that's the rule, it begs the question, why do we still see them all over the place? If they're not the ideal setup, why do they even exist?
The short answer is, they're a compromise. a last resort, really. The rulebook only allows them when building a bridge or a tunnel is just completely out of the question, either because of the insane cost or the local geography makes it impossible.
And for those times when these at-grade crossings have to be built, the safety rules are non-negotiable. The road has to approach the tracks at a pretty wide angle, 45 degrees or more. It has to be straight for at least 30 meters leading up to it, and it has to be almost totally flat to make sure a car doesn't stall. And of course, the most important rule of all, the driver has to have a totally clear line of sight way down the tracks.
So, after going through all these different levels and all these nitty-gritty rules, what's the big picture here? What's the final takeaway from all this hidden design that's all around us?
It really all boils down to a simple three-step philosophy, and the order is absolutely critical. Step 1, first and foremost, make it safe. Step 2, make it clear. A driver should intuitively understand what they're supposed to do, and only then, after safety and clarity are locked in, do you try to maximize how many cars can get through.
So the next time you're sitting at a red light or merging onto the highway, just take a second to look around. You're not just on a random piece of pavement. You're inside a highly controlled environment, a solution that's been carefully engineered to solve the incredibly complex problem of moving all of us around safely.
But this leaves us with one last, kind of huge question. Think about it. All of these rules about sightlines, about reaction times, about clear signs, they're all designed around the limitations of the human driver. So as cars become more and more automated and eventually drive themselves, will this entire rulebook become a relic of the past? Now that is a question that's going to be answered not in a manual, but on the actual roads of the very near future.